I am fired up to be here. Who's fired up? Man. Well, guys, I'm excited because I get to share with you a topic that I'm absolutely passionate about. You know, can we give it up to all the trainers today? Did you guys get incredible value from every single senior vice president that spoke on the stage just today, yeah? Incredible. So I'm going to jump right into this. No romancing in the beginning, just going to go right beast mode into the training. Is that okay? We got a lot to cover. So my topic is called tap rooting. And so really my topic is how to create consistent production where every 30 days your business is getting bigger and better every month. Is that okay? And so how many of us here today want to be a top producer? How many of us in this arena today want to max out our compensation plans on the residual basis and TCAP basis? Very good. And so we are going to have a black and white conversation. This is a leadership conversation. If you consider yourself to be a leader, say I. Very good. So we are going to jump right into this. And so we're going to get the first slide up there. What we have to understand about being a leader is that we have responsibilities to produce results. And in life, just like in ACN, you end up with one of two things. Number one, results, or number two, reasons you didn't get them. Does that make sense? And so we have to understand that excuses don't pay the bills. Results pay the bills. And so what we have to do is adopt the mentality that we are going to go out there and take full responsibility of producing results in this business. Does that make sense so far? And so what I like to always parallel it as in sports, you know, there's always a lot of, different sports, football, basketball, baseball. We can look at certain athletes, but the only athletes who are considered the greatest are the ones who are consistently, season after season, always outperforming and always winning. True or not true? And so we have to get the responsibility of a leader. And so there's many different different titles, different definitions. But I like to define leadership in terms of ACN, right? And so here's how I define leadership to my organization. Leadership, a leader takes responsibility for creating production, promotion, and payouts for their IBOs and do it all of the time. Say that with me. Production, promotions, payouts for their IBOs and do it all the time. They don't do it for a week. They don't do it for a month. They don't do it when the sun's out. They do it all the time. Does that make sense? And so it boils down to the quote, repetition is reputation. Does that make sense so far? And so we have to understand rule number one, definition number one, what is a leader? Now number two, the mindset that's attached to being a producer, a leader who's focused on producing results. Number one, we have to ask ourselves. Now I know we have some new people in the game. We have some seasoned veterans in the game. But here's what it really boils down to. What level of game are you playing? Can we agree that play Pee-wee football requires a different level of commitment than playing professional football? Yes or no? And so what we have to understand, we can be playing Pee-wee ACN or we could be playing professional ACN. Depending on what result you want will determine what game you have to play. But obviously with the bigger game requires a bigger commitment. True or not true? We have to have the mindset of being a producer. Right? There's a lot of people who mistake having the title. And it's okay if you have a title, but what we have to get, what's more important than the pin is the production that you create while you're at that position. People have it all mixed up. They believe that the pin, if I'm a ETT, if I just get to ETL, if I just get the team coordinator, everything will work itself out. The truth is, the pin does not equal production. However, production will always equal the pin. Does that make sense? Now, the other conversation we have to understand, a part of being a leader, I always talk to different people everywhere I go, and usually the newer folks, they have this mindset of, I'm just looking for the one. I'm just looking for the leader. I can't wait to find a person who's going to blow it up. And obviously, it's a very long journey for them because the reality is you will recruit who you are. You will recruit what you are, not what you want, but who you are. Does that make sense? So what we have to get is that we won't find a leader until we become the leader. So rule number 3 is be the leader, then you'll find the leader. Does that make sense, guys? Then we have to have what we call beast mode focus. What does focus mean? Follow one course until successful. A lot of people think, well, my business is kind of slow right now. Let me go ahead and put more time into this. Or let me go ahead and diversify into that. My mentor always says you can't chase 5 rabbits and catch one. It's got to be one thing, one time, all the time, and that's how you're going to end up being one of the greats. Does that make sense, guys? Now the grind. Say it with me, the grind. If you want to get rich, you got to understand it will be challenging. If getting rich was easy, everybody would be rich. The grind to get to senior vice president, the grind to get to regional vice president, we make it look good. It looks good when you're on the stage, but we can agree behind the glory, there's always a story, true or not true. And so we have to get that. There's a grind attached to being successful, whether it's in ACN, whether it's in sports, whether it's in traditional business. You're going to have to embrace the grind, the work ethic involved, the challenge and obstacles that will present itself on your journey to becoming successful in this business. Are you guys with me so far? And then the biggest thing is we got to commit to daily results. We got to commit to being accountable. We got to commit to taking 100% responsibility. Not 99, not 75, not 80-20, but 100% responsibility for going out there and doing all the things that we're supposed to do, meaning if we're a leader. Now, the biggest thing we have to commit to as well is taking criticism. Criticism from our uplines. Criticism from our downlines, meaning what? If you have a mentor you're working with, see, sometimes they can see things you can't. Every successful basketball player, every successful football player has a coach. Does that make sense? And the reason why is the coach can see things you can't. So if you are on the journey of becoming great in this business, one of the biggest assets that stepped into my life was my personal coach. She had a reality check type conversation with me, and she says, Max, here are the things you have to work on. Now, I was already an RVP. I had already been in the game for 5 years. I had already made money, and here's someone 5 years later is coming to tell me, here's what you need to work on. Understand that you have to be willing to be coached. You have to be willing to take constructive criticism. Does that make sense so far? Now, in order to play the game, you got to have the mindset, number one. The second thing you got to do is have the skill set. Oh, can we go back really quick? Oh, there we go. Fundamentals. If we played football, it's important to know how to throw the ball, catch the ball, run the ball, tackle, avoid being tackled. True or not true? Well, in ACN, we have some fundamentals. In order to play the game, to maximize results, you got to have the proper skill set in place. The first skill set is presenting. Second skill set is launching. Third skill set is being able to close for results, whether it's customers or IBOs. The fourth fundamental is promoting events. The fifth fundamental is promoting ETTs. And the sixth fundamental is leadership development. If you can master these 6 things, it will lead to you winning champions here with ACN. Does that make sense, guys? Now, let me show you a visualization. You may hear the conversation, it's important to focus on results and production, not the pin. Yet there's so many of us right now that are chasing a title. If I could just get the last 20, 30 points to knock out TC, it'll all be good. And so I want to give a real visualization. I usually do this for my TCs and above, but I feel like every single person here is looking to create massive results in 2014, true or not true. So I'm going to give you a stark comparison of a person that thinks in terms of being a pin versus being a producer. So let's say you're all about the title. I got to hit ETL, so I'm going to do what I got to do to hit ETL. So you hit ETL, and let's say you're an ETL just producing minimum results. 5 IBOs a month. Maybe they get qualified, maybe they don't. And so you're now like, okay, well, ETL's not that great. I'm not really making money. Let me go hit TC. TC will solve the problem. So then you do what you need to do over a couple months. It's so easy to get service. As good as ACNs, people are going to join. Even if you're not good, you'll hit team coordinator. But just because you hit team coordinator, that's not going to change your production. Does that make sense? If anything, you'll still be doing minimal numbers. You'll be a team coordinator doing 10 IBOs a month. But then what happens is you stay in, keep doing the same thing. You have the same mindset, the same skill set. Eventually, you'll go RD. And this is when it gets dangerous. Because when you're an RD, you have 2 TCs in your group. The problem is, if you've only done 10 IBOs a month as a TC, you'll probably only be able to teach your TCs how to do 10 IBOs a month. Does that make sense? So if you're an RD, you'll probably do like 40, 50 IBOs a month. You'll make some money. But here's where it gets crazy. Because now you create what we call a cultural barrier. Because now that you're the RD, you got the pin, right? You've been in for a year, 2 or 3. You've established a certain culture, a certain attitude, a certain focus. And now your TCs are duplicating it, your ETLs are duplicating it, your ETTs are duplicating it. That's why I go into some organizations and certain marketplaces where there's people there who've been in for years, and they don't even understand how the compensation plan works. Are you guys understanding the conversation so far? Now the flip side is to think like a producer. Focus on being a producer. Here's what happens. If you're an ETL, and you really take this conversation. Now, it doesn't matter where you are right now. You can make a decision today. You can go ETL. You master what I'm going to talk about today. You start producing production. You start putting in numbers, an IBO a day, or whatever it is. But let's just say you consistently do 30 IBOs a month qualified. Are you making money, yes or no? And if you're an ETL making money, are your ETTs making money, yes or no? And what happens is, if you do the right things, promotions will come. You'll hit team coordinator, and now notice how the pin will change. And the production, even if it maintained, you'll do 30s in ETL, then 30s as a team coordinator. What's now happening is, you're a TC, but your income just double. Are you understanding so far? You do that every single month, you're gonna potentially generate a six-figure income for the year. Is that okay, yes or no? Is your confidence gonna be up if you're making six figures a year, yes or no? Are you gonna be fired up about ACN, yes or no? But here's what's great, by the time you hit RD, you would have mastered how to produce. You would have mastered the game. So now you're an RD teaching team coordinators to do what you had done. They started doing the same thing, and now you're gonna be putting in serious numbers as an RD, 100 or more IBOs a month, 20, 30, $40,000 a month. Could you live with that, yes or no? And then there's a bunch of us right now who are in the process of learning the game. Maybe you had one good month, one bad month, and every other month it may be good or bad. And what you're finding is you're stuck in a rut. We call it the vicious circle. Now I'm gonna give you a strategy today that hopefully you understand. So I encourage you to record it, okay, because I talk super fast, you're not gonna be able to write notes, okay? So if you get this conversation, I'm going to show you a strategy that's gonna allow you to take your business from being a pin type leader to now a producing type leader. Does that make sense so far? No matter where you are, if you implement what we're gonna talk about, you're gonna be able to create consistent production on a monthly basis. Is that okay? So let's talk about it. The strategy is called taprooting. What is taprooting? Taprooting is creating momentum in one specific line, building depth under your key players in that line, which in turn you're creating production, promotions, and payouts for your IBOs, and that establishes a winning culture, and of course you're having players on your team who are now developing the skills. Are you guys understanding so far? Very important. So we're going to talk about this. Now the next piece is, in every game that we're going to play, if in football, the goal in football is to win, yes or no? And the way you win is by scoring more touchdowns than the other team, yes or no? So every team has a goal. Every play is designed to score a touchdown or get you close to scoring a touchdown. The problem is most people don't have a game that they're playing with ACN. They don't have a specific goal that they're going after, every single month. So let's just use the equivalent of winning in football here with ACN. Winning in ACN would be you hitting a specific production goal. Let's say you're an ETL, your goal is to do $5,000. Or if you're a team coordinator, $10,000. If you're an ETT, it's $3,000. So the question, if that's what's called winning, what do we have to do day to day, week to week, to score touchdowns that will lead to a win? So here's how I do it for my group. If you're a leader, you're a full-timer, you're doing one IBO a day, one qualified team trainer a day, and then you're doing one pre-registration for a national per day. Any person that does this on a day-to-day basis, all they got to do with ACN is one IBO a day, one qualified team trainer a day, and get one person registered a day. Usually these are full-time people. They're making six figures. They're doing incredibly well. Now, if you're part-time, you can't do that. So let's just adjust it. Maybe do 4 IBOs a week, 4 QTTs a week, 4 pre-reg per week. Now, this is not a rule. This is something that's as an example. You can create whatever game you want to create with your organization. It could be customer-based, whatever you want it to be. Are you guys with me so far? Now, when it comes to the game, I'm going to give you some rules to the game. Couple definitions we have to understand. Number one, momentum. A lot of new excited IBOs following the process and getting results. Number two, total responsibility. If we're going to play to win, you got to be willing to be 100% responsible for getting the job done. DR, daily results. Phase 1 stands for personally recruiting new IBOs. Now we're going to get into the gist of it. First string players. A first string player is somebody who knows how to play. They know how to present, they know how to launch, they know the process, they're willing to help out, they're usually an ETL. A second string player is usually an ETT, and they're willing to facilitate. Maybe they're willing to help out with, getting some customers. Maybe they're willing to help out with the PBR, pass out documents, but they're willing to help out in the process. Now, I know this may seem very abstract, but I'm going to put it all together in the next 5 minutes. A new possibility of momentum. Very important. We call this the NPOM. The NPOM is an IBO that just signs up. They have contacts, they have influence, and they're willing to play the game. We're going to come back to that in a second. And then the next piece is the farm system. Farm system is a process that you're going to have in place to develop all your first and second string players, so when they're ready, now they're ready to go hard and play to win. Does that make sense? There's about 50 or 60 football players on the team, but only 11 are playing at one time. Does that make sense? So you may have an organization of 100 people, but maybe not all 100 are engaged or active in the game. They're on the team, they just may not be playing. Does that make sense? I'm going to teach you how to utilize everybody to maximize results. Now, a couple other pieces you have to understand. Injured player. An injured player is somebody who's not able to play full on. Maybe you have an IBO who's on vacation. Maybe they have family issues or a complicated work schedule. So they're on the team, they just can't play. 49-51, the ratio of desire per leader. Meaning, if you have a person on your team, right, and you want them to be successful. Let's say you wanted 51% for them, but they only wanted 49%. That is the wrong ratio. They'll never be a long-term leader. Does that make sense? The proper ratio is you got to want it for them 49%, but they got to want it 51%. They got to want it more for them than you want it for them. Make sense? And then crawl, walk, and run, stages of momentum. Now, everybody in this room falls in one of these three categories. If you have a crawling business right now, that means your business is dead. So right now, we must be focused on phase one, personally recruiting individuals, identifying NPOMs, new possibilities of momentum, and immediately using those individuals to transition into the walk stage of momentum, which basically means now you have a business that's doing PBR 6:30, 8:30 every single night. Can we agree somebody that's doing PBRs every single night will produce more results than somebody who's just doing a one-on-one or two-on-one throughout the day? Yes or no? So everyone starts crawling, but you want to get into the walk stage immediately. But the ultimate goal, the way you're going to continuously produce and produce and produce, is to get into the run stage. By the time you hit the run stage, you have 3 or more PBRs happening every single night, and that in turn is going to allow you to maximize your production in this business. Now let me show you the big mistake most IBOs make. This is an example here. Let's say this is you at the top. You have 3 organizations. Now if I were to ask most people, how many lines are you working? Most people would say, I'm working 3. And so what we find is that they have 3 teams, but they're not really working 3 teams. If you look at the organization, say Jen here, right? She got involved, she hit ETT, and then that person hit ETT. Now Jen's not really doing much, or as an example, maybe she's traveling, who knows? But you feel personally responsible to help out and support, so now you're going to take on her 2 organizations. So now you just added, now you're actually working 3 lines, because you have Jen's 1 for 1 line, and then her ETT's 2 lines, because they're still too new, they can't do anything. So now you have 3 lines you're working right there. Does that make sense? Then you have your next person, they blow up, got some IBOs going, momentum happening, you're making some money, you're like, oh wow, I got it going, I'm cranking. I don't want it to die. So now you start supporting everybody, doing everything for everybody, right? So now you just added 5 additional lines to your schedule. Then you have your third group with Tom. You had to go ETL so you don't miss out on all these bonuses. So maybe you try to put a personal recruit there, maybe 2 recruits there to get it done, to go ETL. But because they're your personals, now you got to personally support them. So now you're obligated to help those individuals. So if you look at this, how many lines are you working now? 10. You're working 10 lines. You're an ETL. I'm a senior vice president, and I only have 8 lines. Does that make sense? You're an ETL doing SVP work, but you're not making SVP money. And so what we say is that working everywhere equals momentum nowhere. Does that make sense? And so we call this the magnifying a glass effect. See, you go outside, there's sun everywhere, right? The sun everywhere, baby, it's lit up. But if you were to take a magnifying glass, place it in one specific area, say you take a leaf or a piece of paper, put that magnifying glass on the paper, you're going to take the sun and the rays from the sun and focus it in one specific area, create an intense ray of light that will eventually lead to a fire. Does that make sense? And so we need to think the same way with our business. And so what will allow you to focus in one place to create that fire? We call it the NPOM. Say it with me, NPOM. The new possibility of momentum that will change your business. An NPOM will help you start experiencing momentum. See, an NPOM is a person that has contacts, influence, and are willing to play. Now, I know a lot of us here are going after successful people. I've gone after a lot of successful people. How many of us recruited successful people, but then they didn't want to go to Saturday training? Has that ever happened before? And as a result, there's no long-term success there. They may lead you to somebody else, but understand, if you're not willing to play the game the way it's supposed to be played, we can't win. We can't play football, be on a football team, and you're over here trying to play baseball. It's not going to work. Does that make sense? So you got to find somebody that not just has the contacts, not just the influence, but then they're willing to play the game the way it's supposed to be played. Make sense so far? Now, an NPOM is determined after their first PBR. I love it when I meet amateurs, and they're like, I just recruited Joe. Joe's going to be a player. He's going to blow it up. I said, how come? Oh, because he owns his own business. Okay, great. And then guess what? He has a PBR. One person shows up. We put all this expectation on this individual because of their title. See, I don't give anybody a title until after I see a result. Does that make sense? And so we determine it after the PBR. So as an example, if Joe has a PBR, no one signs up, no one shows up. Does he have influence? Nope. And so, but if Joe has a PBR, and let's say 5 show up and 3 or 4 sign up, does he have influence? Yes or no? So he automatically becomes what? The NPOM. And once you have your NPOM, you're going to work with that NPOM and blow them up. The NPOM is what's going to determine which ETTs and which ETLs are going to be in season and momentum. So let me give you a visual to help you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. So let's say this is your organization. Now, this can be broken down at every level and any level. What you're going to do, let's just say we have our ETL in our organization. And let's say your ETT here has recruited 2 new people. But it's Christmas, so they went on vacation. Now, here's what an amateur is going to do. They're going to sit there and still try to invest time to make it work with those individuals. But can we agree, if people are going on vacation, you're limited as far as what you can do, yes or no? So, unfortunately, those people are what we call injured players. They can't play. So now the ETL and ETT in that group are considered to be in the farm system. We just want them plugged into Saturday trainings. We're going to communicate with them on a day-to-day basis. But we know that we're not going to go out there and blow things up just yet with them right now because there's no NPOM. Make sense so far? Now, let's say we get to the next ETL. And then the individual schedule's crazy. Maybe he's in retail, so he's working all the time, every single day. Can't do much right now. It's okay. He's in, but he can't play. So same situation. He's going to be in the farm system. Now, let's say in the next organization, you recruit a guy named Joe. Joe has a PBR. Joe signs up 3 people right away. What does that automatically make Joe? An NPOM. And so now what are we going to do? We're going to work where? Are we going to work with the vacationer? Are we going to work with the retailer? Or are we going to go work with the NPOM? And now here's what's going to happen. You identify the NPOM. You're now going to go ahead and tie in your ETLs and ETTs. We're going to get paid off it. And now that organization is your focus for the next 30 days. That team is now in season. That ETL is now on the field. That ETT is now on the field. Why? Because now they're in a position to get paid. Now they have an NPOM with contacts, influence, willing to play. You're going to go in there, take that NPOM, blow them up, create a massive success story, and as a result, get every single person paid in that organization. Does that make sense, guys? So here's an actual visual right here. Starting lineup, right? So let's say your first stringer's Mary. You know, she's in that organization, right? She's fired up. She has $7,000 on the table for the month of December. I don't care what vacation's coming up this month. I don't care what obligations are coming up this month. Tell anybody that they have a chance to make $7,000 part-time this month. Are they going to be a little bit more committed this month, yes or no? Are they going to show up to Saturday trainings this month, yes or no? Of course, because they got money on the table. Now you have your ETT Bob. Bob is an ETT underneath the ETL. He has $3,000 on the table. So is he going to commit? Is he going to show up to PBRs? Again, because now there's something to work for, the desire's there. See, you guys are trying to motivate people. I don't want to motivate people. I'm looking for people who are motivated. But part of being a leader, my job is to set things up so that way there's a reason to be motivated. Does that make sense? And then you got your NPOM, Joe, and our number one goal with Joe, we're going to do everything with Joe, 100% of the work. We're going to help him go ETT. We're going to help him get a TCAP. We're going to help him get a quick start bonus. And then once we do that with Joe, what's the next and most important step after that? Do it again. And we got to find the next NPOM under what? See, here's what some of you think. Oh, you know, Mary's an ETL. I'll let her run it. I'll let her take care of it. I'm going to go work my other groups. And what happens is Mary's only been in for 2 months. She doesn't know how to play. Just because she has a LeBron James jersey on, it doesn't mean she's LeBron James. Does that make sense? So we got to understand, we can't confuse the pin, right? It's about the results, about the skills. And so the big mistake that we make, I got an ETL, and I'm like, I'm good, I'm done. I don't have to worry about it. Let me go work on my second leg. And whenever people do that, everything begins to fall apart. See, your job is to continuously stay in that one organization, identify the NPOM, blow it up, blow it up, blow it up, and blow it up. Why? Because if you do it the right way, every ETL is getting trained. Every ETL is learning what momentum is. Every ETL is learning how to launch, how to present, how to produce results. They're not just hearing about it, they are living it. Does that make sense? The way I create duplication is I go and start working with somebody 30, 60, 90 days. I blow them up so big, they're talking like me, they're walking like me, right? They're dressing like me because they were using me as a template of what I did with them, and now they're doing it with other people. Does that make sense? And we're going to continue that process. And so let's say, you know, Joe, he's the NPOM, he hits ETT. We find the next NPOM. Let's say that's Alex, right? We get the slide back up there. Now what happens to Joe? If Joe has an NPOM under him, Joe hits ETT. Now Joe becomes a second string player. Now he's in a position to make up to $3,000 a month. But what happens to Bob? There's only 2 options for Bob. Bob's either going to go ETL and become the first stringer, but if he doesn't go ETL, what happens? He goes into the farm system. See, some of you guys are going to try to make Joe or make Bob the ETL. You're going to go in there, let me work his other legs. You don't want to do that because now you're taking away from the momentum, the new possibility. Do you understand? See, you never want to make someone an ETL. If you make them an ETL, then they weren't a real ETL to begin with. Does that make sense? So it's important that they go ahead and get that done. Now, if they get it done, great. But if they don't get it done, who's your first string player for the current month now? Mary's still the ETL. She goes into the next season being an ETL. Now doing what? Chasing the 7,000. We work together. But if Bob did hit ETL, then he becomes a first string player. Are you guys understanding the concept so far? So I know there's a lot of titles and words and all this stuff. Some of you guys are like, ACN. Phones, football, what's going on here? That's just what we do to keep it real simple because we like to win. Anyone here like to win in the room? Very good. So this is just a conversation. It's just an idea. So ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, this concept is nothing new. Everybody as a producer consistently does this. My wife and I, the benefit of being married to an incredible leader that understands the game, we can have conversations and come up with strategies. And, being that we've seen what she had done in her previous organization, there's always, we always say success leaves clues. She was able to do it again. When she came into my organization, we see all the top RVPs and SVPs that are always on the charts. They have one thing in common. They're always working in the right places with the right people all the time. Does that make sense, guys? This is a strategy we can all begin to implement immediately. So, guys, in conclusion, we have to understand that with what we get this weekend is designed to hit reset, to get you to recommit and refocus. 2014 is right around the corner. We need to start asking ourselves, what do we want for 2014? For ourselves, our businesses, and our families. See, we are just one decision away from completely changing everything in our lives, financially, personally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. We have a chance right now to do something incredible. This weekend is designed to accelerate your business and to do things that you never thought possible through ACN. It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it. We say sweat plus sacrifice equals success. And by a show of hands, how many of you guys right now want to put in some work into ACN? How many of you guys want to sacrifice right now for ACN? How many of you guys are ready to take on 2014 and make that the most epic year of your life? Have an incredible weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.